Welcome everybody to the first debut episode of the Pinnacle podcast, Beyond the Classroom, where I have the pleasure to discuss and interview Kendall Mahamate, who is the International Stakeholders Relation Manager of FITS. I've had the pleasure to meet Mr. Mahamate before in my life, which I'm grateful for. And for you who don't know him, sir, would you like to tell everybody who you are and what do you do?
Thanks very much for the introduction. May I say Muzi?
Yes.
Oh, no, fantastic. Thank you. So my name is Kendall Mahamate. I work at Wits University. I work in the Vice Chancellor's office, taking care of external stakeholder relations on his behalf. That's really pretty much about conversations that he has with different partners, friends, and people we like to call stakeholders to the university. And where he sees fit, we then start special projects or find ways of taking those conversations deeper into the university. And I marshal and manage those relationships both within and outside the university as well. I'm a father of three, been around for about 5 decades. And my children are in primary school. My eldest is about to finish primary school and about to go to high school. The youngest is still in preschool. And I've been in Joburg for about 15 years, lived in very many different parts of the world, as well as different parts of South Africa. Grew up in Mawatu and went to primary and high school there. I don't know what else I could add to that.
Oh, that's extremely interesting. There's a lot to unpack there. So, you've stated that, to digress from the first topic for a while, that you have had the pleasure to inhabit many cities throughout the world and live there. Out of those cities, which ones would you say were the most enjoyable to live in, or the most interesting, the ones you enjoyed most?
Sure. So I haven't lived in all of these places. I have been to them, but I would say of those that I've actually spent more than just a few months in, I'd say Mawatu, where I grew up, which is in the former Bukutatswana, which was a homeland pre-democracy days.
Yes.
That was my favorite. I think for most people my age, there's a lot of nostalgic memory of childhood days. I mean, I grew up there riding BMXs, playing with friends, going to school there, and literally just coming into my own as a human being in that space. So I really enjoyed it. I mean, my first 17, 18 years of life, not all of it, but most of it was there. Then after that, I'd say Cape Town. I really loved living in Cape Town. That's why I studied. That's why I did my formative years as an adult were based there. So I really enjoyed that. And other places that have been pretty cool to talk about. It's a town called La Plata in Buenos Aires in Argentina. Spent a bit of time there, met lots of friends. I was there as a Rotary exchange student. So, I came in on an easy ticket. It kind of sorted you. Like you get placed in a family, spend time with them, get put in a school. And that way, it's a very easy way to get to know the people, get to know the culture. It's not much of a shock because you're always mollycoddled, if I could, in that kind of space. But I really enjoyed that. The food is amazing. People are really friendly. And as different as it is to South Africa, it was quite easy to settle in there.
Do you think that in all your travels, right, and being at Wits now, that having the chance to go to places like Buenos Aires and growing up where you did had made you a better person in the workplace?
Definitely. There's a saying in Setswana which says which literally means in English, to travel is to see. And it kind of becomes a little sanitized when you translate it to English, because literally it means that you don't just see, you get to experience. You get to get into other people's shoes, and with those experiences, you're then able to then apply them to whatever else you experience in life. And I think there's a lot to be said for getting the opportunity to travel and getting to places. When it comes up, do it. I'd say the same to you. When that opportunity comes up for you to be able to travel and see other places, meet other people, see how the same thing is done in different ways, or how similar it is to what you already know. It's an amazing thing. If you can't travel, read. Because you'll find so much in books, you'll find so much in terms of both fiction and non-fictional literature. You'll find other people's experiences expressed in ways that you might find resonant with you. So if you're not able to physically travel, get into reading, get yourself into a book, and you find yourself transported to some amazing, amazing things.
Saying that, as the International State Relations for Wits, you've had the chance to travel with Wits to multiple countries and meet multiple people.
Yes.
Out of those adventures, shall we put it,
that's
and adventures, who were the most interesting, most gripping, most out there people you've ever met?
So so the travel that I've done with Wits has been work about reconnecting with alumni of the university. Wits University is one of those universities that has got like one of the biggest diasporas out there. I don't know if it's because it's South African. I don't know if it's because it's from Joburg. I don't know what it is. However, there's so many people who over the years studied at Wits. Wits is 102 years now. We celebrated the centenary 2 years ago. But there's so many people who started leaving South Africa in the 1970s, then again in the 1980s, then again in the 1990s, and again in the 2000s and 2010s and so forth. And each time it's been for a different reason, you know. But meeting and connecting with those people on university business has been interesting because one meets medical doctors and dentists and architects and engineers and commerce or law graduates who've gone on to do either ostensibly amazing things like heading up Fortune 500 companies, heading up Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, which has made all the James Bond films and all of that, or people who've gone on to be executive producers and record company owners who've nurtured the careers of Maroon 5 and Mariah Carey and people that became household names at some point or another, and they're all from Joburg and all studied at Wits, right? And also people who've just gone on to create careers for themselves in their chosen field, be they engineers or dentists or whatever it might be, who are not in the news. So that's been an interesting part of the whole thing. There is one man that I met. I was really very interesting. This was in Boston.
Right.
An older gentleman, an African American, who had recently retired. Headed up a school, I imagine very similar to yours. I'm actually quite impressed by the school.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's beautiful grounds, and I like the spirit around it. Who had been heading up the school, had retired, and I was walking back with a colleague from, I don't know, we'd gone shopping because one of the things that happens when you go on a trip anywhere, people expect you to bring stuff back.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and people like your kids expect you to bring stuff back. So we'd gone shopping. I think it was the MIT store, trying to find stuff. I was trying to find stuff that's scientific. Yeah, just inspire those young minds. We found a couple of nice knickknacks. On the way back, I think there was a Springbok match on. Now, as you know, being in the United States, football, American football is a big sport for them. Lots of sports bars along the walk back, but we didn't know where to stop. Ended up at one where we tried to ask them to see if they've got some kind of bouquet that will allow us to watch the Springboks play. It didn't happen. But we ended up meeting this one gentleman who shared some information with us about his life. I don't know how we started talking, but we did. And one of the craziest and most impactful things that I got out of that conversation, he said, if you want to know what your society is going to look like, just look at the high school kids. Mm. If you want to know what's going to be happening in 20 years in your society, the mindset, the way of doing things, the values that high school kids have, is what your society is going to be looking like. I mean, that stuck with me. In fact, it's one of those things I want to share about interesting people I met.
That's very interesting. And for me, a high school student, it's a worrying yet optimistic view on things. Mm-hmm. And having said that, and you being a brilliant man who has been privileged to be around other brilliant people.
Thank you for saying that. I don't believe I am, but thank you.
No, it's true. But around other brilliant people. What for a high school student can and will make them brilliant, or what can they develop to make them brilliant to help the future be bright?
Wow. Environment is very important. So there's a lot in a high school, a person in high school. There's a lot around them over which they most times have no control over. The environment that you're born into, the environment which you put into in terms of your school, and those things do shape you. Those things do shape your manners. They do shape your ethics, your approach to life, other people, work, moral values, all of that. What's important to take away from that is to also know that you still have some agency. You still have some agency where you can decide that your dreams are actually worthy, your aspirations in life are worthy, regardless what your current environment might be, that your ability to see through what it is you'd like your life to be like is literally in your hands. There are many people, and living in a country like South Africa, it becomes apparent so many times when you hear about somebody who comes from a difficult background. And a difficult background could be either a financial background, or it could be a place where they maybe don't have access to specific types of technology or specific types of teaching, or maybe their home life is challenging, but who've actually gone on to do well for themselves as human beings. Not necessarily becoming like the richest person that you're going to read about in the newspaper or whatever, but becoming somebody who's like self-standing and value to the community. So the most important thing, I think, one is to know that your dreams are worthy. The other thing to take cognizance of is that there's nothing that is outside of your reach. If you remain determined, if you use the people around you, look for mentors, look for coaches, get advice, try really hard not to get yourself to thinking that you have to make those hard decisions on your own, because there are many decisions and there are many things that come your way as a young person, and you sometimes think, I need to figure this out myself. You know what? You need to do things yourself, but there are more than enough people around you, if you look hard enough, from whom you can get sound advice, you can use them as a sounding board, and you can actually have them have walked their journey and be able to share with you what they experience as well. So never think you're alone, and know that as a South African, you can do anything. We see it every day in the sporting field, in the science field, in the business field, in the humanities field. We see South Africans doing amazing things, regardless where they come from.
It's food for thought. And for the high school, right, there's a lot of kids who want to make successes of themselves, and there's a lot of kids who yearn for that, but they don't know what really makes success. Out of all the successful people you've met, being yourself successful, being around all these different people from different walks of life, what is a trait or a thing that makes them successful, or is a common trait among all successful people?
I think a common trait is the intentionality of what they do. Being not necessarily single-minded, but being, and not being sure, not necessarily being sure or certain either, but it's about making a decision that you've taken time to think through, you've taken time to discuss with others, if you will, and then making a decision. I am going to do this, and sticking to it. But also being agile enough to, when new information comes, to say, look, am I still sticking to it? Why am I still sticking to it? What am I hoping to get from it? Yes, I'm sticking to it, or no, I'm changing it. So it's about being in the moment. It's about one, being intentional, two, being agile enough to take on new information and review what your decision was, and then moving from there. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's stuck in my mind about those that have been successful.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's very informative. And Wits being a place of success and higher learning, to bring it back to Wits,
Yeah.
right? As a Witsi, as someone in Wits and at Wits and who spends majority of their time at Wits, what does it take for a person like myself or the viewers to be a Witsi or to make a success as a Witsi?
Oh, wow. Look, Wits is a university like any other university. Yes, it's got a history and a legacy of graduating with some of the most brilliant minds out there, some of the most impactful people out there, 4 Nobel Prize winners, Nelson Mandela, people that have gone on to do great things in business and in society, people that are still doing those things. To get into Wits, one needs to do pretty well at school. One needs to understand what it is they want to do with their career. So, as you might imagine, to get into a humanities degree, one doesn't need as many of the high marks as one would need to get into medicine or engineering, but you still need to do well. It's ideal that somebody is also somebody who's going to look to be learning new things, because Wits being in Joburg, it's almost like a mirror or a microcosm of South African society, where you have very many different races, very many different cultures, from both the student as well as the staff side. And in that melting pot of experiences, one gets to learn how to engage with life and people from anywhere. I mean, in a single class, you'd have somebody who spent all their lives growing up in Bryanston, and then somebody who grew up in the Vembe district in Limpopo, and then somebody else who grew up in Abuja, in Nigeria, and they're all in the same class, right? Or somebody from Bares in the Free State, they're all in the same class, or one of those is the teacher, one of those is the lecturer. So being open to new experiences, finding ways of actually engaging with that without losing yourself is really important. But making sure that you study hard and work hard at your schoolwork is really, very important. And I think the best way is that one can become familiar with a place like Wits is when there are events that do happen at Wits, because there are quite a lot of things that Wits hosts that are specifically geared towards high school learners. Like the science expos, Olympiads, moot debate courts, all of that stuff. As soon as one hears about those, it's ideal to just go there just to get a sense of the terrain, get a sense of the place, see other people that are slightly older, how they're engaging with Wits. It's a really cool and interesting place.
There's many people who like math and science, and there's some who like art, and the people who don't fare well or have specific strong suits, many of them among the high school students are worried because they don't know whether they can get into a university setting or make a success of themselves. My question would be, is that a factor in determining a person's acceptance into Wits or attaining success? Is that a factor, or can it be mitigated?
Yeah, it's a factor. Look, if you're getting D's in mathematics, you won't get into engineering. If you're getting B's in mathematics, you might still not get into engineering. In fact, it's a more holistic view that one would have to take. You need to figure out if you're good at art, you're good at history, you're good at geography, English, Afrikaans or whichever, or like isiZulu, whichever the language might be, and those are your strong points, you'd be hard put to get into medicine. And likewise, if you're doing really great in mathematics, but your English and your history and so forth are not that good, you'd struggle in English lit, in the humanities space in those particular areas. Do the research. So the more research one does, the more one opens their mind to what's out there, what's possible. You can start joining your own dots. You know, you can start like creating your own kind of like, okay, cool. This is the kind of space I want to see myself in when I'm older. And these are the potential routes I could take to get there. And then, you know, and then the world really is, I'm not big in seafood, so I say the world really is your steak.
Oh yes, oh yes. So the advice would be to high school students like myself to not think rigidly.
100%. Yeah, and to actually research.
Right.
Go and find out, like ask your parents, ask your uncle, your aunt, ask your mom's friend who's an architect. What do you do? How did you get here? How does it feel? What do you like most? What don't you like most? This is what I do. What do you think I should be doing? If somebody's a football player, find out. Just literally do research. And research is not just on Google. It's not just, and you will find research in social media as well. By the way, I think there's a strong pull towards creating more informative posts on different platforms of social media. Parents out there, don't disregard social media. If it's used properly, it can be very useful. And then also speak to people. Also speak to people and get to know more about what's out there and what the experiences have been as they've built their careers.
Right. In your experience, gaining knowledge, doing research, is the classical, more traditional way of meeting people, reading books, more hands-on way of research better, or is the newer, more modern styles of collecting research better? Like as we go on social media, we Google, what's more beneficial in your eyes?
I think both. I mean, human beings are social animals. The technology has advanced to the point where, you know, one can create a bubble around themselves and get everything that you think you need from that. But I saw a study, it wasn't even a study, it was just an article that I read that says human beings need 8 hugs a day. You're not going to get hugs from social media. You get likes and whatnot, but you're not going to get that human touch from social media. There's a lot, for example, in us having this conversation face to face as opposed to via an online platform. I think that things get lost in translation when you're just relying completely on digital technology. So I think it's a hybrid of both. Do the research, use tech, you know, because with tech you can reach parts of the world supersonic speeds, super quick speeds. You know, you post something or you share something or you see something and it's happening almost immediately somewhere else. That's amazing, and it's going to get even better, right? But that human-to-human connection is something that I would advise, recommend, urge you and your peers to maintain and retain. It's really very important. You get a lot from engaging with people that you can't really translate to tech.
That's very nice. Thank you. And as Wits being a technological hub, a place where parts of it being a technological hub, where new technologies that are groundbreaking are being developed, and you being able to see such developments. Does tech scare you? Does future tech, does the risks aligned to that scare you?
No, not a chance. I mean, it's exciting. It's really exciting. In my life,
right.
I'm going to give you one of those stories.
I'm ready. I love these stories.
In my life, I've been through the. How old was I? Okay, so we had telephones already. Right. in my life, um, the first television set in South Africa it was in the 1970s. The first television set in South Africa was then sold. I don't know by who. I don't know who bought it. It was a black and white TV, pretty much. Everybody had black and white TVs, and you could power this black and white TV with your car battery, right? So you take the jumper cables, you connect them to your TV. There you go. You got your TV, right? It was black and white. In that time, we moved to movie theaters, and then we moved to stuff on your cell phone. Netflix, Showmax, you name it, Disney Plus, it's all there, right? In that same time, we moved from the telephone where like you have to the rotary telephone, where you dial your thing, and then nobody could get hold of you if you're not at home, right? We've moved beyond that. We've got to the point where like you're using money in a tiki phone, and you're putting money in there, 20 cents or whatever it is, to place a call, to the point where you use a card. Then there are containers, where like there's someone who owns this thing, and it's an MTN or a Vodacom or a Cell C container or a Telcom container, to the point where I'm using my cell phone, right? And then making calls on your laptop.
Yes.
And you can't talk to anybody if they're not in your country. If you want to make a call overseas, you're going to pay big money. Now you make free WhatsApp phone calls to somebody who's in the US, somebody who's like in China, somebody who's in the next row. So a lot has changed in that time. And there's a lot of stuff, a lot of content that I missed out in that.
It's a short period of time.
And so it's 5 decades. But in that time, there's a lot of content is actually, and so for me to sit here and in answer to your question to say, I'm a bit worried about technology. No, I'm not worried about technology. It's exciting. It's exciting. It's made my life easier. It's made my work easier. It's given me access to other people's thoughts, other people's ways of doing things, giving them access to me in ways that were not even feasible, or were not even possible 15 years ago. I didn't think they were. I'd never imagined it would happen so fast. The danger is in how humans use this technology. So the tool itself is not the danger. It's the user who needs to be educated, who needs to be sensitized and socialized in a way that allows them to see the sheer breadth and depth of the amazing things that can come with it, and how else to make it better and what else to do. I mean, we're in the advent, AI is like taking over the world. We're in the advent of quantum technology now. Yes, we're not there yet, but when it comes, it's gonna grow rapidly. It's a user that needs to be sensitized, socialized, educated to allow themselves to be able to just use it in a way that's impactful, but not doing harm.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, the world is moving towards a more technologically advanced society, and it would be beneficial for students to be educated or be well trained in the aspect of technology. To bring it back to Wits, do you see that those students with more technological abilities fare better? And would it be good for the viewers and the students at home to get into technology? Would it make their lives easier in the future?
Yeah, look, I mean, now I think assignments, assessments are done both in person as well as online. Information is gathered online. A lot of books have been PDF'd and made available through different portals online. So it does make a big difference to be able to have access to technology, to be able to use it. It does help one's experience of university. However, with the internet penetration that we do have globally, with the penetration that a lot of people have to the internet through cell phones, there's still a lot of people who the translation of teaching and learning from physical books and physical writing hasn't really happened because they haven't had access to those things. So in a place like Wits University, which, as I said earlier on, is a mirror of South African society, it's important to be able to adjust to those realities, both those realities. That there are people who are digital natives, right, and that have been using cell phones since they were born, or been using technology since they were born, rather. And other people who only discovered it when they first used an internet cafe, when they were making the application, or who had very limited access to it and aren't familiar with how to translate a Word document to a PDF and vice versa, how to then attach it to a Gmail or an Outlook kind of email. So it's being aware that you've got both worlds from Wits's perspective, and making sure that you find ways to accommodate both. And yes, it does lean heavily on the side of the people who do have technological experience and are you able to use tech already. It helps them greatly. And look, when I was handing in my assignments at university, they were handwritten. That's how long it was, right? There were a couple of people who were still typing up, were able to type up theirs and they can submit them and then print them out. But 90% of our class at this university, somewhere down south, close to the coast, didn't have computers. I won't mention it because I work somewhere else now.
Oh, okay. So you made the pulled attention to asking the question of why.
Yes.
Right? So for myself and everyone at home, for high school students who at this integral time in their life are choosing.
You're in grade 12, right?
Grade 11.
Grade 11?
Right.
Really?
So one, yeah.
You might as well be in grade 12. Got a good head on your shoulders, man.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm charming. I don't know how to respond.
Yeah, good enough.
So, how would and why would someone like myself, any student, not even talking about clinical students, any students who ever may watch this, why would they choose Wits? What's 5 fun facts or interesting facts that?
Why are you throwing it back at me?
Not even 5. What's any facts? But any facts?
Yes.
About Wits that would convince us or prove to us that Wits is the one that we want
So
to
of
go
course
to.
I do deserve that. Yeah. Okay. Right. So Wits, I think one of the most important things is some people don't like talking about rankings, but I will.
Okay.
So Wits is, for now, and for the very recent past, being instrumental, important, very recent past, Wits has been top 2 university in South Africa, top 2 on the continent, but it is a top 1% in the world. So now we're going to look at a bigger pool. So that's part of that thing of the rankings. Now within the rankings, there are very many different things that are considered. The quality of the teaching and learning, the number of international students, the number of research papers and where those research papers in which fields are being published. All of those things and others get considered. Wits stands well on that ground. Another thing that I think is useful for people to know and why Wits would be a good place is that Wits for the longest time has produced countless graduates in all fields who've gone on to do well in their subjects. All the law firms in this country, all of them, majority of the top people graduated from Wits Law School.
Right.
If you want to look at the Joburg Stock Exchange, the JSE Top 40, Wits has got the largest number of Wits graduates as CEOs in that space. If you want to look at self-made dollar millionaires, or is it billionaires? One of the two. Big difference, I know. Billionaires. Self-made dollar billionaires. Wits has got the highest number globally of self-made dollar billionaires outside of the US. Higher than Oxford. Yeah, Patrickson Shaw. So if you want to look at those as just key things, you can look at that. Beyond that, though, VETS has, since COVID, realized that the student experience is one of the most important things that any university can offer a person. Yes, we want to give you top-notch teaching. Yes, we want to make sure that like the support that you get is also high quality. But we also want to make sure that your experience as a young person growing up in this world is one that is fun and conducive to just allowing your creative and intellectual juices to flow because you're in an environment that makes you happy. Because you spend however much time on campus, whether you're a day scholar or whether you stay in race. I'm not using very old terms. I don't know what people say these days.
No, I think it's so much. I use those. At least I'm outdated.
Hey, you never know. Maybe you're an old soul, right?
Most probably.
Yeah, most probably. But you know, those like the student experience is really very important. So those are the things that I think I only give you 4. The fifth one is yes. The fifth one is WITS is a good place to go because of our connections to industry. Because of where WITS is placed, which is the economic hub of this country, pretty much the economic hub of the region itself. WITS has got relationships with multiple entities, corporate and industry entities across all fields, and that allows our students to get close through internships, through just the research that we do, through engagements that we have with different parts of industry, through different institutions like the Center for Applied Legal Studies or the Wits Mining Institute or whatever it might be with industry. And I think that's 5.
That is 5.
Did you cut it?
It did. Thank you. It was more than sufficient. I thank you, sir.
Thank you. Come to VETS.
Okay, come to VETS. I think that I wouldn't say explains my questions or my questions, but I think on that point we've covered many of the things I would like to have heard from someone like you. Is there any questions you'd like to ask me or any questions about?
Oh, okay. Thanks very much, and thanks for the conversation. I think it was really very interesting and good for me to be able to just think through some of my experiences and how they apply to the work I do, and also getting them from somebody like yourself, who's finishing off high school and looking to see what's going to happen beyond that.
Thank you so much, sir. That was Mr. Kendall Mahamate from VETS. I thank you and good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.